On episode 364 of Nintendo Switchcraft, the rumors were real. The Lite Switch is here. The Switch Lite, I guess I should have called it. Anyway, let's get started.
This is Alex Albisu, and you're listening to Nintendo Switchcraft.
Switchcraft is brought to you live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Tune in live over at twitch.tv/runjumpstomp. This episode of Switchcraft is made possible by patrons like Trucker Paul. Get Switchcraft and my other content ad-free for as little as $1 over at patreon.com/runjumpstomp. And leave a voicemail for the show by heading on over to runjumpstomp.com/voicemail from any device, and I may even play it on the show. Joining me today is a good friend of the show. I've been on his show, which is a really great show about video games in general, and we were on America's Next Top Podcaster together. He placed higher than me, so he must be doing something right. Alex, what's going on, man?
Oh, just living the dream, man. Got way too many podcasting projects, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And like Bill said, we met on America's Next Top Podcaster. I only made three more places above you. You're a quintessential pro.
So why don't you tell everybody, before we get into holy cow, the huge news today, why don't you tell everybody where they can find all of your stuff? Tell us about Alex.
Yeah, so my name is Alex Albisu, and I am I've been podcasting for a few years. I am a father. I have a podcast about fatherhood called The Dad Chronicles. So if you guys listen to any of the Frog Pants stuff that Scott Johnson and them do, we have a bunch of Frog Panters that have been on there recently. So it's been a lot of fun. As Bill mentioned, we have a Joystick and Mouse, which is a video game news and review podcast that I do with a couple of buddies of mine named Don. He goes by Diddy, and Tim, aka J Dimes, and we come at it from a perspective of we're just a few guys that love video games but hardly have any time to play them, but we still love to talk about it and we're passionate about it. So if you head over to joystickandmouse.com, you can go listen to that. Bill has been on the show, and it's been a long time coming. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. Like, we tried to get Alex on right around E3, but he was flying all over the damn world, so he wasn't able to get on. He was everywhere, but he's everything's settled down now, just in time for, there's only one story to talk about today. I had a whole bunch of show notes planned, and there was a bunch of stuff that I was going to talk about. That stuff is going to have to get shelved. Either I'll do a light switch tomorrow, or we'll do or it'll get pushed to Friday's episode. But there's only one story to talk about today, and that is the Switch Lite it's real. It's here, and Nintendo announced it today. Let's go through the stats of this thing, the things that are very, very important. Okay, we're going to just get a gloss over, and then we'll get into each thing. Handheld games only. No kickstand, no HD rumble, no TV, better battery life, $199, no adjustable brightness. Those are the things that we're going to be talking about on this episode. So, Alex, what's your immediate reaction when you saw the Nintendo Switch Lite?
I feel like this has been a long time coming. We've talked about it a bit on Joystick and Mouse. So there's always been this kind of inkling feeling like, the Switch is kind of starting to get into this handheld market that has really been dominated by the 3DS and just the DS line that Nintendo has had. I've always been a big believer in simplicity when it comes to these sort of platforms. I love that they're kind of bringing everything together, really leaning heavily on the Switch. I understand that, there's really no plan to get rid of the DS line. I understand a lot of people love it. I love it. I think it's great. But I think that what we're starting to see is Nintendo's approach to really just a one-stop shop for your gaming experience with Nintendo, and allowing for that versatility. And I think they're taking that first step by creating a new version of this Switch that is that's great. And I was having a conversation with somebody else earlier this morning that if you don't have a Switch and you're really on the go, and this is a great product for you. I think that this is going to really fill that gap that people have been looking kind of on that edge of like, do I want to adopt a Switch? Do I really want to take that on? This is a great opportunity to do that.
Especially at that price point of $199.99. What do you think of that as a price point?
I think it's fine. It's actually a little bit pricier than I expected it to be. I almost expected like if they were to come out with something like this, it would be around that like 150 to 175 range. But I think that was also assuming that performance, it wouldn't be quite as like performance heavy. But it sounds like it's really up there with the it's up there with the same quality that you would get from the regular Switch. So I think I'm okay with it. I've come to terms with the $200 price point. I think it's fair.
I think the price point is fair. I would have said $179.99 would have been a better price point, just a little bit cheaper. Or if you're going to stick with $199.99, then pack in some game. It doesn't have to be like a $60 game, but pack in something with the Switch Lite that is, just to help sell it just a little bit more. So, for example, you can go out and you can buy a 3DS, and we're going to talk about the fate of the 3DS now that the Switch Lite is here. You can go out and you can buy a 3DS, and for $80, you get the 2DS, which is like the wedge thing, the doorstop one, and it comes with Mario Kart 7, which is a huge game, so fantastically popular and really, really fun. And that's for $80. And for $200, this doesn't come with a game. I think that that's a mistake on Nintendo's part, but it is $100 cheaper than going out and buying the Nintendo Switch. And there's no downgrade in quality at all. This is, for all intents and purposes, 100% a Nintendo Switch. This plays almost all of the games that are on the Nintendo Switch, with the exception of the games that won't work in handheld mode. So like Mario Party does not work in handheld mode, I believe. So you can't play Mario Party because it requires that you take the Joy-Cons off and do silly things. 1-2 Switch, I believe that you can play this, but you have to buy Joy-Cons separately, and it doesn't have a kickstand, so it's not like you can set it up, and that's not how you want to play that game anyway. I'm not sure that anybody wants to play that game anyway. Yeah. But this is a full-on Nintendo Switch. This is going to play Breath of the Wild. It's going to play Smash. It's going to play Mario Odyssey. It's going to play Mario Kart. And it's going to play Mario Maker. And I think that $199 is a pretty good price point. It's not a fantastic price point, but it's pretty good. I was laying in bed this morning. I was looking at my phone, and I saw a story from The Verge popped up on my notifications, and I was like, what's this? I clicked on it, and that's when I saw the Nintendo Switch Lite, and I was like, oh, another rumor. Oh, wait a second. This doesn't feel like a rumor. And I read it, and then I jumped out of bed and ran into the room and started reading stuff, and I was like, oh my God, what's this? Is real. It's actually happening. The Switch Lite is here. I think that I think the price point is good, but it's not great. Let's talk a little bit about, and I closed my show notes. Here we go. Let's talk about the fact that it's handheld games only. Do you think that that's a big problem?
No, I think it's so if I was actually really trying to think of the games that like wouldn't work here, and none of them are like showstoppers for me. So if I was to take a step back and look at, what, let's just assume I don't have a Switch, and I remember when I didn't have a Switch, I was one of those people who was like, oh man, should I take the leap? Should I just do it? First of all, I'm very glad I did, and I've told this to a lot of people. It's my favorite console that I have right now. But if I was still in that phase, I would probably look at this and look at the games that you could still play with it, and I'm not looking for a Mario Party experience on a small screen,
Right.
for instance. And I have Mario Party. It's a great party game, but you want to play it with a bunch of people. You're going to play it on a bigger screen, so it's not really applicable here. I feel like if and for those people who really want truly like a handheld experience, the games that it really caters to, I think work great for that. And you're getting the same console quality. Like if I think about what's a game like even Final Fantasy 12. So like I've been playing that because as Bill mentioned, I've been traveling like crazy. So I bought that. I brought along Breath of the Wild, a bunch of other games. Those games work great on a handheld experience. But I'm not looking to play Super Mario Party out on the road. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
I'm totally fine with it. I'd be curious to see like a full list of games that don't work with it. That's one thing that I haven't been able to look at yet. But like even if I think about Pokemon, Let's Go Eevee or Pikachu or whatever, like that works. You can take the little Joy-Con out and pretend to throw the Pokeball, which is a pain in the ass anyway.
Well, but when you play that in hand, you can play that game in handheld mode, and then you can just use the buttons.
Yeah, and that's totally fine too. So even those games where you would need to disconnect it, and even like Super Mario Odyssey, like it still works fine when you're doing it, when you're playing those games, mobile anyway. So I'm totally cool with it. I don't see that being a big issue. How about you?
I don't think it's a big deal. Most of these, like the Labo stuff, is not going to work. Because it's a different form factor and it's not going to fit all of the cardboard nonsense that people have already built. And I don't see Nintendo bringing out separate Labo for this, especially because it needs to be able to take the Joy-Cons out and put them in the different parts of the cardboard ridiculousness in order to have those functions of the game work. So the idea that it's handheld games only does not bother me. And you're right. That's the first thing that I was looking for this morning, is I was looking for a list of games that only work in handheld, and I couldn't find them anywhere. So if anybody can find that list and send it to me, tweet it at me or email it to me, runjumpstomp@gmail.com or runjumpstomp on Twitter. I would love to see that list if you can find it. I can't find it anywhere. And I'm sure that somebody has gone through and figured it out by now. The number of games that are incompatible with this are going to be extremely low. So I don't think it's a very big deal. I do think that it will cause some confusion in the marketplace where, mom or dad or grandpa or grandma are going to go and buy a thing for their kid. Maybe they'll buy that Labo and they'll bring it home, and the kid's like, I can't, it doesn't work. I don't understand. Like, I'm like, because not everybody pays attention to video games like we do. And so they're going to be confused as to why this doesn't work. So I think Nintendo is going to need some way of differentiating games that will not work on this. And I think like right now, if I reach back and grab a Switch game, like here's Breath of the Wild right here. And on the back, it shows play mode, TV, check. Joy-Cons off, tabletop mode, check. Handheld mode, check. But this is little tiny thing, and people are not going to look for that. They need something on the front, so that when mom and dad go to buy something for Junior, or maybe if my wife goes to the store and buys me a game for my birthday or for Christmas or something, she knows, oh, okay, this will work on the Switch. This is Switch Lite only, or something like that. I don't know. I think that they definitely need something to help people in stores figure this stuff out.
I would agree. No, and I'm trying to remember where your stance is on the cardboard bits. You're not a big fan, right?
I think it's cool. And we bought the VR kit, and I put it together with my son, and it was really fun to do. But then it just sits there taking up space, and that's my problem with it, is that it's huge and takes up space. And once the building, which is really fun, is done, then you just have a space taker in your house, and he never uses it.
Yeah, and I'm just almost imagining when you brought that up, like a whole new line of new cardboard things that, like, if you're like a mass consumer of Nintendo and you want like a Switch for every occasion, and then all of a sudden you got to get like all the, it's just way too much cardboard. But one other thing that I actually wanted to bring up in regards to the little Joy-Cons that you know, just being able to even take out the Joy-Cons. One of the things that I was reading about, you know, people had some concern was that I guess their Joy-Cons have been breaking. Have you ever had a Joy-Con break on you?
Oh yeah, I have. I ran into the Joy-Con drift, which is where it would start to. And by the
Yeah.
way, this is not exclusive to Nintendo. My son has joystick drift on his PS4 all the time.
Yeah.
We've bought multiple controllers to replace because they just wear out. I'm not sure why they wear out, but you know, I've run into it in both Switch and PS4. In fact, I had a listener fix mine for me because they were super awesome. But now, if you have that issue, now you got to get your whole Switch replaced, not just the Joy-Con.
Bingo. And that's the thing. It's like, what do you do? Do you take do you just deal with it, and then all of a sudden, like, I don't know if it's even possible, but can you like pair up additional Joy-Cons to it or something to, like, it's just not that, none of that makes any sense. Like, so you know, part of me assumes that Nintendo really thinks of these things, right? Like they will think about addressing that issue with a mobile console, especially one that's going to get a lot more wear and tear than I think like the regular Switch would probably get, and that they have plans to either, like, they've already kind of proactively addressed it with the architecture of the hardware itself, or that there's some kind of plan in place when that happens for these for these Switch Lites.
Yeah,
that was a concern I read from somebody, and I personally haven't had, surprisingly enough, with how much I traveled with my Switch lately, like I haven't had any of that drift happening. So maybe I'm due for it, and I hope not. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I don't have to go and replace my Joy-Cons anytime soon. I have an extra pair for whatever it's worth. So
yeah. Fisto in chat says, I'm not sure if the 3DS has issues with the slider. I have 3DS and I played a ridiculous amount and I have not run into any issues with that. Res TV in chat says, Nintendo has years of portable experience. You don't hear many issues with the DS or 3DS controls. Not having things removable makes a huge difference. Less dropping and more room for support. I hope the Lite is the same, and I agree. I hope that their support is fantastic with this, and hopefully they've looked at the Joy-Cons and they've figured out what the hell the problem is. And Sony, you should do the same thing with the PS4. But maybe they finally figured that stuff out, and when they figure it out, maybe they decided, okay, we're going to fix it for the Lite, and maybe they'll fix it for newer Joy-Cons going forward. Only time will tell. Speaking of the Joy-Cons, the left side of the Switch Mini or Switch Lite, it's hard for me not to say Switch Mini because I've been calling it that for a long time.
I have too. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But the left side has a D-pad, not the 4D button things. And for me, I hope that it's a D-pad that is better than the D-pad that is on the Pro Controller, because I think the Pro Controller D-pad is kind of weak. Although I've been using it a lot lately to play Mario Maker 2, and I've been okay. But I know a lot of people who have complained about the Pro Controller D-pad. How do you feel about the separated buttons on the traditional Joy-Cons, Alex?
You know, I haven't had too much. First of all, I get it. Like, I get why people like the traditional D-pad, because there's like, you know, more I don't know, more flexibility and forgiveness perhaps in your movement with your thumbs. So I think that this is certainly addressing that concern if people have it. I personally don't have a problem with it. I've used the direction pad when I've had to on a variety of games. So this is kind of a non-issue for me personally. I think this is fine if people need it, but it's not really a game changer for me personally.
I know that there's a lot of people out there who see this and they're going to be like, Nintendo, if you don't give us a Joy-Con with a D-pad on it, like right damn now, we are going to come at you with pitchforks and torches, because clearly Nintendo knows that a lot of people prefer the traditional plus shaped D-pad, or they
Yeah.
would not have put it on the Switch Lite. And so a lot of people are going to say, I want to give you more money, Nintendo. Give me a Joy-Con with a real D-pad. Do you think they're going to do that?
You know, they might. I mean, Nintendo has a way of just kind of seeing the market gaps and filling in as kind of like life cycle goes on. So, I mean, you just look at even like the 3DS, like you have the XL, version, because a lot of us with like, a normal adult size hands that want to play video games wanted something a little bigger to hold. Like they kind of iterate. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some of these D-pad. I don't even know what they would call it. Is it like a Joy-Con Pro? I don't
Joy-Con
know.
Plus, because it's got a plus shaped D-pad.
Hey, look
That
at
one's
you.
free, Nintendo. That one's free.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, so here's the biggest issue for me, and the number one reason why I will not be getting this for me, and that's that it has no HDMI out. That you cannot hook this up to a TV. That is a huge loss for me. Like, there's no way, because I stream. I'm a streamer. Do I need a new Switch? Obviously not. I've got one. I play it all the time. So maybe I wouldn't have bought one anyway. But I really, really like the way that the Switch Mini looks. And with no way to hook it up to a TV, that means I definitely will not be picking it up. However, I know I'm an edge case. Way out on the edge. Nobody else really worries about that kind of stuff, or at least very few people do. Do you care that you can't hook this up to a TV?
Yeah, no, I don't. And yeah, I see. Who is it? IKS81 in chat is saying that the no TV mode is a killer. I think that what people need to keep in mind is that this is addressing a really specific part of the market here. You're dealing with a console that's meant to be taken on the go, and because of that, you're really you're subscribing to that no TV thing, and I think that's okay. It's not like the other ones going away, right? So like if you need that HDMI out, you've got the for $100 more, you have the ability, and it's got the hardware and the means to publish it to a TV. So I know I've seen a lot of folks having an issue with it. I personally, I see that Nintendo still has that option, so it's not really a deal killer for me. But I mean, that said, I'm with you in that regard, to where I probably won't pick one up, only because like I already have a Switch, right? Like I'm more seeing it as I have what I need. I think that this is great for those people who are looking for that jump to start playing those exclusive games on the Switch that they've been eyeing at a price point that's a little bit friendlier than them shelling out, $300 or whatever it is now. So like I'm good with it personally.
Yeah, my son plays his Switch almost exclusively in handheld mode. And it, like, even so much so that like he's playing a game and I'm like, why don't you just hook it up to the TV? And he's like, well, I don't want to. And I'm like, okay, that's fine if you don't want to. But for me, if I'm in the house, I hook it up to the TV. I'm always on the TV. Yeah. The thing is they could easily just sell a dongle that would have HDMI, and because this works with other controllers, like you can pair other controllers to it. So I don't understand why they would say this will not work on the TV when they could just say, hey, and here's the cord that we're going to sell you separately for $30 or something, like, well, probably $50. And you can plug in your Switch, have it under your TV, and still be able to play up on the big screen. Because I think that's one of the reasons the Switch is selling so well, is because people want to be able to play on the TV and take it with them. And this is only one option. And obviously, here's the next thing that people are going to start saying. Now we have a Switch that doesn't hook up to the TV. Are we going to get a Switch that only is on the TV, where it's like a traditional console that is a box that sits under the TV and never comes off? Do you think that's ever going to happen?
I think that's the piece that's now missing, right? And I think that we even talked about it when you came on Joystick and Mouse. We anticipated that it's almost like you have like a sandwich, and in the middle you've got the Switch, right? Like, and then now, as a base layer, you've got the Switch Lite, which is now just super entry level. But I think what they're missing now is a potential for I don't even know if the games are capable, but like 4K ultra resolution, graphics. Not that it's it's Nintendo graphics, so it's all cartoony anyway. So who really cares? But it's I think that there's still an opportunity for them to say, yeah, I got this nice 4K TV. I want to play Breath of the Wild in full on 4K or Breath of the Wild 2 whenever that comes out, and like super ultra HD graphics. And perhaps there is a limitation there with being able to take it on the go because of the hardware power or whatever. That's where I still think that they could potentially be missing. But as we've seen with Nintendo over the years, I don't think that graphics aren't necessarily at the top of their list. They have a very specific aesthetic that they like to fill, and I love it. I think it's great. I think that it's a breath of fresh air in a lot of like the serious gaming that you see these days. But if you talk about what is actually missing right now in their arsenal, it is that, I think.
Yeah, I agree that is missing, and of course there, when the Wall Street Journal originally started the rumors about the Switch Mini, they were always paired with also the Switch Pro, and we don't know what the Switch Pro is. We don't know if it's coming, but hey, it turns out that they were right about the Switch Mini, so maybe we're going to see a Switch Pro down the road. I do hope so. I don't know if I want it to be something. The Switch Pro or whatever it is that they want to call it. I don't know if I want it to be something that doesn't have the option to take away and take with you, because that feature is what differentiates the Switch from the other consoles. And we don't need another Xbox, and we don't need another PlayStation. We need Nintendo to be Nintendo and do their weird stuff, because without them, we're not going to get the weird stuff. And the weird stuff usually leads to some pretty amazing innovations. Let's talk about battery life. I got a quote here from IGN. It says here, the Nintendo Switch Lite also features a battery life of 3 to 7 hours, which is a slight improvement over the original 2.5 to 6.5 hours. So it's a slight increase in battery life. Now, this is for a couple of reasons. Number one, we've got a more efficient a power efficient chip layout, as well as they don't have to charge the Joy-Cons because it has built-in controllers. So getting a smaller screen, there's less to power, and there's no extra batteries. All of that adds to a little bit more battery life, which in a system that you can't play docked, I think that's far more important in the Switch Lite than it is the regular Switch.
Yeah.
Because if I'm playing the regular Switch and it says, "Hey, your battery's gonna die," I can be like, "Oh, okay." I go over, dock it, pull the Joy-Cons off, sit down, and play on the screen. Whereas with the Switch Lite, when your battery dies, you're gonna have to go sit next to a wall and plug it in or something, and that's gonna be kind of a hassle. Or you just plug it in and let it charge. Although I'll be honest, I've never ever run into my Switch battery dying, because I mostly play docked most of the time. But I've never run into that. I know that people have written into the show before and told me that they have run into that all the time, and a better battery life would be something that they would love as somebody who only plays in handheld mode. So I know that there's people out there. It's just not me. What about you?
So like I talked about, and we talked about at the beginning of the show, I went on some crazy like international road trip for work and pleasure and some other stuff. So, I went to Budapest, and after Budapest, I went to London. I mean, I spent a good majority of that trip to Budapest, which was, like a 9-hour flight or whatever to get to Frankfurt. Or, well, actually the whole thing was about, 9 hours. Anyway, so the whole point is that I finally, like towards the last leg of that trip, got that low battery signal on there. Like the battery is already insane.
Well, depending on what game you're playing.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and I'm trying to think of like what I played: a bit of Breath of the Wild, Final Fantasy 12, a little bit of the Mario Rabbids game, which this is one of my favorite things ever. I love that game. But anyway, so like I ended up really maximizing the battery on that thing, an extra 30 minutes, I don't think is a game changer for me. And this is my perspective, right? Because I've used the hell out of my Switch, and I've really pushed the battery, and it's really up to par for me as is. So an extra 30 minutes, great, but it's also just 30 minutes. So that's okay. I'm more excited that what the Switch Lite really does for me personally is this idea that we now have an ability for more people to adopt the console to play the games that maybe they haven't had a chance to because they haven't had a Switch for the dollar be $100 less to adopt it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's important for Nintendo to have something you can buy at every what's the word I'm looking at every price point. So they've got the 3DS out there at $80, and then they've got the Wedge 2DS at $80, and then for I think $150 you can get the 2DS that has the clamshell design, the 2DS XL, and then at $200 they've got now the Switch Lite, and then at $300 they've got the full Switch. And my guess is there's a lot of people out there who, and in fact, I was streaming some Mario Maker before we were recording, and somebody was like, "Do you think that we're going to get a price drop on the regular Switch?" And I don't think we will. This is the price drop for the regular Switch. Yeah. And then the price or the Switch Pro, if that ever comes out, probably $350, $400, something like that. But speaking of the 3DS, Doug Bowser was talking to The Verge, and he said we will continue to support the 3DS as long as people are willing to keep buying it. Where's his actual quote? It said, "Oh yeah, we'll continue to support the 3DS family of systems as long as there is demand." I don't see Nintendo continuing to make more 3DS games, but there's no way in hell that they are going to shut down production on the 3DS, because there are so many games for it, and it is such a cheap system that you can get in at a very low barrier to entry. The people will buy these almost like an impulse buy. They'll be like, "Oh man, there's a 3DS. I'll go ahead and grab one for Jimmy. He's turning 6." Where you don't want to hand a $200 item to a 6-year-old. Maybe when that kid turns 8, you get them the Switch Lite, and then maybe when they turn 11, you get them the other Switch, and then when they're 16, you get them the Switch Pro. So they've got these all over the place, and I think that's a really good position for Nintendo to be in. Do you think that we'll see any? I don't think we'll see any more games for the 3DS from Nintendo. Do you?
I don't know. So part of me is like, if they're going to continue to support the 3DS, and here's my view, just kind of in general, I think that in the next 5 years, we won't see necessarily a DS system. They will find a way to really consolidate everything into the Switch line or some kind of consolidated line, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're even like there could be cheaper price points than the Switch Lite that come out in the next 5 years to bring it, to make it even easier to adopt the Switch. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, I think that Nintendo has been making this push, especially since the Wii U, where they want people to be able to be mobile with their gaming consoles. Consolidation is always a good thing. Simplification is always a good thing for a company, and their valuation, it's always goodness. So I think as of right now, we may start to see like the 3DS market kind of trickling a little bit, maybe some games coming out. But I mean, considering now Pokemon, one of the biggest selling, IPs on the DS and the mobile platform, is really hitting it hard with, mobile on, your phones, on Switch. I think that's kind of indicative, and same thing, Fire Emblem. A lot of these IPs are starting to make their way to the Switch, but we're not going to see it turn off right away. I think that, like I said, in the next 5 years, I think it'll be a little bit different. That's my anticipation. Not that I want the DS to go away, but because I actually really like the DS, but I think that's gonna be the shift that we see.
I don't see them making more games. They didn't mention the 3DS once at E3 this year, like not
Right.
even in passing.
Yeah.
But they're going to keep making 3DSs because it has one of the greatest libraries of games ever. I mean, honestly, if you don't already have a 3DS, go buy one now. They're so cheap,
Oh,
and they have
so cheap.
so many games that you can play forever. It's just because you have the entire DS library and the entire 3DS library,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of games for both of those systems. There's just so many fantastic games on there. I
Yeah, like
think it's.
Pokemon and I'm sorry to interrupt,
Go
but
ahead.
just thinking about like Pokemon and Fire Emblem, like were two that I really enjoyed playing. But even and I was gonna say even some of the Mario games, but I feel like they've actually migrated a lot of those Mario games to be available either on Wii U or Switch now at this point, right? Like,
Mhm.
can you think of a Mario game or something in that umbrella that exists on DS now at this point that doesn't exist on the Switch?
Mario Golf. But
Oh,
we're just waiting for it. I'm sure that they will make it. There's no reason why they wouldn't. But Mario Golf is one that jumps to mind immediately. But that it's not like the Mario Golf that they have on the 3DS couldn't easily be ported and upres to the Switch. I would prefer that they just make something new instead. But that's just me. So anything else from the announcement that you want to hit on before we go to feedback from other people?
well, let's talk about the colors real quick.
Oh
What are your
God,
thoughts on the
yes.
colors?
Oh,
I kind
they're
of
so
dig
pretty.
them. I really like the yellow one. I think that's pretty cool.
The yellow one is gorgeous. Although here's the thing. So they have I mean, obviously it has a bezel, and then they have this like recessed yellow bezel around it. Why wouldn't they just have the plastic go right up to where the screen is? Like, what is the reason for having that little yellow bezel? And do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
It's really strange.
Yeah, it's kind of distracting.
It is. It is. Oh, by the way, you'll notice that there's not. Let me grab my Switch. My wife and I were playing the Dr. Mario on
I
it
love
last night. So
Yeah.
I've got the weird NES controllers docked to it because they're
Yeah.
charging. But if you
Love
look
it.
on the Switch, let me switch cameras. If you look on the Switch, right down on the bottom, don't look at the greasy fingerprints all over the screen. If you look down at the bottom, there's like a little cutout on for a brightness indicator right down
Yeah.
there,
Yeah. Yep.
and I don't see that on this render. And it said that it doesn't adjust brightness, and I'm assuming that when they say it doesn't adjust brightness for the Switch Lite, that means that it just auto brightness, because they've gotten rid of
I would
that
assume.
sensor. Because God, if they don't let you adjust the brightness, that's just dumb.
I mean, or it's like, I don't know if you have an iPhone or whatever, but there's that, you swipe up and there's like a little thing that you can adjust like within the OS itself.
Yeah, there's
Maybe there's
gotta
something
be a
there.
way, because
There has to
you
be.
can adjust the brightness manually on the Switch, or it will auto adjust brightness because it has that sensor. That is one way that they can save money, is get rid of that sensor. Let's talk about. I guess we didn't talk about HD Rumble. Do you care that it's gone?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a little bit. That's one of those where I was actually a little surprised because I feel like the Rumble feature is such an easy thing to. I don't know. It's like such an easy thing to put in a console these days. That or even a something like a Switch Lite. That was a little surprising to me. I kind of like the little rumble. I kind of like feeling a little more immersed in the thing. You get hit by a guy with a big axe, and then all of a sudden you feel it. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of cool. So yeah, I think that there's certainly that was surprising to me. So, eh, meh.
I'm sad that it's not going to have HD
Yeah.
Rumble. I'm telling you right now, Alex. I want you to buy a game. It's called Blaster Master Zero. Came out in the first
Blaster
month.
Master Zero.
Yes, in the first month of the launch of the Switch, and that uses the HD Rumble in really, really cool ways. So like there'll be times where you're like top down, and there's waves coming across the screen, and you will feel the waves move across the screen from one side to the other, and it's really, really cool. I can understand them getting rid of it because I guess that's expensive. They got 2 motors, one for each side. Does that mean we won't have any rumble? You know, they said no HD rumble, but does that mean that we won't have any rumble? And
Oh,
I have no
so
idea.
actually, that's a good distinction. I was actually, I took that as there would be no rumble, but that's actually a very good distinction. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. All right, let's
Because then that
go
takes
ahead.
care of the thing that I was concerned about. I kind of like that little reactive feel when you're holding the thing and immersed in the game. So.
Maybe we can get an old Game Boy cartridge and we can plug it into the bottom of this thing, and it can have the rumble like on old. I think it was on the first DS system. You could for Metroid Pinball. I think it had a built-in rumble in the cartridge or something.
God, that's pulling an old one there, Bill. That's good.
That was really a long time ago. All right, let's listen to our sponsors. They're going to say a thing about things, and then when we come back from hearing about our sponsors, we're going to look at feedback from you guys about what you think of the Switch Lite announcement.
It may be the most addictive toy in history, and it's definitely the hottest thing this Christmas.
All right, everybody, we are back. I tweeted out this morning, now that the Switch Lite is official, what do you guys think of it? Will you be picking one up? Reply with your reasons, and I may read them on the show today. So first off, this is actually pretty telling here. One of the options that I gave was buying it to replace the Switch. 0% of people who voted for this voted for that. They're not going to buy one of these to replace the Switch that they already have. And I found that to be very interesting. 24% of people said buying for a second Switch. 4% of people said buying for a first Switch. So those are the people that Alex was talking about earlier, where they were like, well, I don't have a Switch yet, but now I'm going to jump in on this one because it's only $200. And then 72% said that they're not buying. Probably, I'm assuming, if they follow me, they probably already have a Switch and they've decided, I already am all set. I don't need to buy one again. I'm going to leave this tweet up, this poll up all day. So if you go to the show notes at runjumpstomp.com, this is episode 364. Follow the link to the show notes, vote, leave your reply, and I'll talk about it on other shows in the episode. Real quick, let's go through a couple of, I'm not going to read all of these. Ted Wagner says, not picking one up. As much as I like handheld mode, I'd still pay an extra $100 so my Switch could switch. And that is a very, very good point. What do you think? Do you think it's worth the extra?
No, I saw, and I think I saw Ted reacting to that in the chat here live. And that's something that I actually wanted to go back to. I think that's a really good point. The whole shtick behind the Switch is that you could switch how you're playing it. So, I think right now it's like a little kind of counterintuitive to the vision of what this console was. So it feels, I don't know. It feels a little weird to think that, like, I'm kind of coming around on this whole thing that I said earlier, that I don't really care that it can't be hooked up to a TV, because then it's not really a Switch. It's just like a glorified DS, like
it's a Game Boy
DS. Yeah.
That's what my wife said, because when I told her about it, she goes, so it's a Game Boy? I go, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, basically.
Nathan Elder said, I have 3 kids, ages 7 and under. And at this point, they can't play my, in parentheses, our Switch in handheld mode because it's $300 and I can't replace it if it breaks. $200 is great for a kid's system. In short, it's cheaper, less fragile, and plays the same game. I'm assuming that they are buying more of these. Nakashima 592 on Twitter said, I'm not buying it. I don't need a second Switch. And even if I did, I really like being able to swap from handheld to TV and use that feature more often. I do think there is a demand for this. It's just not in my household. I like the concept for other people. And that's how I feel about it too. Like, I'm not going to buy one. I already have a Switch. My son has a Switch. I don't see the reason to buy another one for my house. But there are so many people out there who do not have a Switch yet. And this is going to be absolutely huge for Nintendo come fall. This comes out, by the way, I don't think we mentioned it, September 20th. This is going to be massive. and these things are going to be really hard to get, I'll bet. Nintendo, I'm glad
Yeah.
that they got their soft launch out of the way with the Switch, but it's really, really important that they have these things in stores so that people can buy them. If you were going to buy one, how old do you think is the price, the age where $200 is the price point that you would be willing to get that for your kid?
Oh God. I don't know, man. It's like 10. I don't know, like some at the age where like your kid kind of has a good idea of how to be responsible. Like I have a 2-year-old daughter and I talk about her a lot on the Dad Chronicle. There's no way in hell she's touching the Switch. Like she can't. Like that's an expensive, even at $200, she can't do that. I mean maybe if she were like 7 or 8, maybe at that $200, that's probably better. um Still a lot of money to like hand to a young kid, you know.
It is
Like
well,
that's where your whole thing about the $80 2DS comes in. That's a great solution, right?
yeah, I got you. We'll read one more. This is from Ace Matrix Zero on Twitter. They said, I like the ability to dock to the TV, so that made me and my 6 kids have the option to play together. If I made any Nintendo purchase in the near future, it would be for more Joy-Cons so that we could play together on our current Switch, which is still new. And I think that that's
6 kids.
yeah. You asking somebody to buy 6 of these things is insanity. Asking them to buy 6 DSs, or I'm sorry, 2DSs, like that's a much easier proposition. But I really like the point that he made here. You can't play together unless you have multiples on this. I mean, I guess you could like set it up on a pillow or something and then grab some extra Joy-Cons and play together that way, but that's nobody wants to do that. So if you want to be able to play with other people, you gotta have the regular Switch so that you can dock it to the TV. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, and here's the beautiful thing, like, and this is kind of what it comes back to that we talked about before. There is now a Switch for really any occasion, and you have opportunities to enter into this little ecosystem and these games that have been like so awesome. If you don't already have one, there's a variety of choices now. So I think it's super cool.
Well, you just said a Switch for any occasion, right? So the Nintendo does not have the best cloud infrastructure. I don't think that, like, there's some people who are like, well, what if I just want to keep my regular Switch hooked up to the TV all the time, and then when I want to play on the portable one, can I access my same saves? And yeah, but you'd probably have to upload, like you'd go to your main Switch and upload your save, and then you'd go to your Lite Switch or your Switch Lite and download your save, and it would be kind of a pain. It's not like, I'll use an MMO to explain. It's not like if I log in to Final Fantasy 14 on my PS4 and then I log off and I log in on my PC and I'm exactly where I was. It doesn't work that way. So you'd have to upload and download your saves, and that turns into kind of a hassle. So I don't think
Yeah,
that
but
that's... Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I also don't feel like that is that hard for a company like Nintendo to do. I feel like they just got to do it. It's so commonplace these days with even like, mobile games. Like I can pick up Fallout Shelter on my iPad. I think I haven't tried, but like, I mean, like just for instance, like you can play a game on an iPad and then play it on your phone and you're kind of in the same place. I feel like if Nintendo wanted to, they could probably deploy that rather easily.
True.
It's interesting that they haven't done it yet.
Well, they're just so bad at service. Like services is just really not their strong suit. They always fall on their face when it comes to stuff like that. Plus, there is the devices that you were just talking about are always connected to the internet all day long. The Switch doesn't have a modem built in. It's not going to always be connected to the internet. You have to be on Wi-Fi. So that means that if you are out and about and you're playing and then you come home, you got to remember to upload because it's not going to happen automatically. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you guys for replying to the thread. I'm going to read more of these on more episodes later on this week, so make sure that you guys keep replying to that thread. Again, this is episode 364, and if you go to runjumpstomp.com, you can find a link in the show notes, or you can just follow me on at runjumpstomp on Twitter, and you can be part of the conversation. Are you ready to button this up, Alex?
I am. Yeah, I'm ready if you are.
All right. Remind everybody where they can find your stuff.
Oh, sure. You can actually really, if you want to listen to any of the podcasts that I do, like I mentioned, I have a fatherhood podcast called the Dad Chronicle, a video game podcast, which we've had Bill on. It's called Joystick and Mouse. I'm also helping to do a bunch of interviews post season 1 of America's Next Top Podcaster. In fact, Bill, yours is going live this week.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So really all that stuff could be found over at incastmedianetwork.com, or just go to alexalbisu.com. That's another way to do it. ALBISU. And all that stuff's there. So super easy to find it.
And if you want to become a part of the community over here, then join us over at runjumpstomp.com/Discord. You can watch the show live over at twitch.tv/runjumpstomp. You can get a hold of me by emailing me, runjumpstomp@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on Twitter at runjumpstomp. Alex, you are at alexalbisu on Twitter as well, right?
That's right.
All right. And if you're looking for ways to support the show, go to runjumpstomp.com/thank-you for more content like this. runjumpstomp.com/shows. And the music that you are hearing right now is Corneria Star Fox remix by Noteblock. It's awesome. Alex, you're awesome. Thanks for being on the show. We will see you guys next time. Until then, bye-bye.